Tua Tagovailoa?
Well, look, recent tests saying that his hip is feeling good, but it's going to be up to what teams decide. Once teams start to really get in there and decide if he's healthy or not, we'll find out exactly where he is slotted to go. But what I keep hearing is that Detroit pick at 3rd overall will be up for sale. Detroit will try to get something heavy for that, and they'll target a team that is looking to draft Tua at that 3rd spot.
Let's get no one is closer to the situation than Laura is. What can you fill us in on as far as the medical stuff?
Yeah, well, it's very positive reports coming out of everything that's gone on with Tua, and that's been the case this whole time since he had the surgery on that hip, and it's just been that he's been ahead of schedule. Everything that's happened, every benchmark, he's been ahead of that, and the reports have been fantastic. In fact, that's a word that a doctor has used to me that's very close to the thing, and I think when these NFL doctors and these teams are trying to find out more, Greeny, the important thing you note is they're looking at the entire history of how this went down, and the fact that they were able to perform this surgery so quickly, they were able to put the hip back into place almost immediately after the injury occurred. That gives you assurance that not only that the hip has been already healed, which is a good thing, but also that it wouldn't happen again. That's going to be one of the main questions that'll be asked through all this.
We have Keyshawn Johnson back with us again today. He was with us yesterday, and he's with us from up there in Bristol. Good morning, Key. I want to ask you this. As you have watched and evaluated the quarterbacks in this draft, before the season began, I think everyone thought Tua was the best. In your mind, if he's healthy, is he the best quarterback in the draft this year?
You know, I had an opportunity to see him play since he's been at Alabama, but, you know, to me, I look at his history of injuries. That concerns me if I'm a general manager or president of a team. I want my doctors to tell me with uncertain that this man can recover and he'll be on the field for us, not necessarily this year, but in a couple years. But in terms of the top quarterback in this draft for me is Justin Herbert. I just like Herbert. I like his size. He showed me some running ability to a degree against Wisconsin in the Rose Bowl. And the thing, when you go back to Tua and you look at what makes him great, it's not the arm strength. It's his ability to move around, get outside the pocket, buy time for the receivers to get open. Will he be able to do that at the next level?
Interesting there, and that's I'm not going to say an unpopular opinion, but it's sort of opposed to what we're hearing from most people. Bobby, I keep referring to Herbert as the guy that the NFL evaluators are going to talk themselves into. They're going to love him because he is exactly what quarterbacks have historically looked like in the NFL, but the league is changing.
He's the prototype. He's the guy that everybody wants, like you said. However, you look at Tua, he can move around a little more. He can deliver those off-schedule plays. Even Joe Burrow, like an underrated athlete. You watch him pull the ball down, move, his pocket presence. Like, you're watching Herbert, I like him. He does some things well, but there's some inconsistencies there that I have a hard time getting over if you're going to take him in the top 5.
Yeah, Keyshawn mentioned the Rose Bowl. I think he showed a lot to people there. The questions that I hear about Herbert are, does he have that moxie about him? Does he have the ability to lead, you know, the way that they would want to see? And you see that from both Burrow and Tua. That's a big part of this. When you look at the guy, he's got everything, as you mentioned, but he also showed a lot at the Senior Bowl. And a lot of the conversations out of that, he had a great Senior Bowl performance, Jeff, I think probably elevated him, at least in some people's eyes. I could see him climbing up there, and we're not talking about him enough.
Well, by the way, if Tua were to wind up getting drafted at 3 by, say, a team like the Chargers that's currently at 6, then maybe a team at 5, like the Dolphins, ends up looking at Herbert. So there are teams in that top 6, more than 3, I should say, that are looking for a quarterback. Just one interesting thing on the Dolphins and the history lesson that people may have been forgetting. If you go back to 2006, Drew Brees and Dante Culpepper were the 2 quarterbacks that were widely assumed to be the 2 free agent pieces. Drew's coming off of the injured shoulder. He doesn't get cleared by the Miami medical staff. They end up going with Dante Culpepper. Drew ends up going to the New Orleans Saints. And so you have to ask yourself, what's the Miami Dolphins' risk aversion with bringing in quarterbacks or bringing in any player who has an injury history, and could they get him cleared? And that's not to say that he couldn't go on to do great things elsewhere as well.
Can I ask you one other question, just because this came up earlier? I agree with you. Detroit at 3 is the spot that I would assume everyone is eyeing if they want to trade up and get the quarterback, which suggests to me that all of a sudden the 2nd pick becomes a fascinating one, because that isn't a quarterback spot. Now it's Chase Young, and I know everyone loves him. But does someone look at 2 and say, you know what, I got to go all the way up to there to be sure I get the player I want?
I have a tough time believing that, because I think that Ron Rivera will adore Chase Young.
Got it.
And that, if it was maybe an offensive-minded guy who wanted to get a haul of picks, maybe. I just think Ron Rivera, that could be a perfect generational talent for him.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports, highlights, and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus right now.